Welcome to the SpiritWoke Podcast, podcasting from the beautiful city of Stillwater, the birthplace of Minnesota. Are you going through a spiritual awakening? Do you wish to learn more about continued spiritual growth and want to meet others who are on a similar journey? We hope that this podcast and its community can be a meaningful resource for you. The SpiritWoke Podcast welcomes special guests from around the globe who share personal stories of their awakening journey, along with details of spiritual abilities they've developed along the way. So buckle up and get ready for this exciting episode. And now, here's your host, Adam Dins.
Friends, welcome back to the SpiritWoke Podcast. Today, I am so pleased to welcome Stephanie DeLeonardis to the show. Stephanie was born and raised and currently resides in Houston, Texas. She is an entrepreneur, an artist, a jewelry designer for her personal jewelry line called Lovecraft, and just an all-around incredible, awesome person. And I can say that because I know Stephanie. So Stephanie is an empath. She's a mystic and is clairsentient. And always been in tune with her energy, with everyone's energy, with vibrations and non-physical entities, both in waking and in dream life. And today, we are going to hear Stephanie's beautiful story of awakening and other spiritual experiences that she has had. And so we are so thrilled to have you with us, Stephanie. Welcome to the SpiritWoke Podcast.
Thank you so much, Adam. What a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited to share my experiences and, just connect with the community and help others through what I've been through. So thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And hey, before we get started, I just want to announce that if to those listening to the podcast, of course, I don't know who else I'd be talking to right now, but in March 1st, 2019, 7 o'clock p.m., we're going to be hosting our first ever SpiritWoke Summit. Go check out SpiritWokeSummit.com. Again, it's SpiritWokeSummit.com. It's going to be an all-day online spiritual conference with 7 of the most incredible presenters. And so go check that out. Registration is open now. So go get your tickets. It's going to be a live event. And if you missed the live event, you can catch it later on demand as long as you have registered. So go to SpiritWokeSummit.com and get your registration on lock now. So looking forward to seeing you there. So that being said, let us get back to today's topic, which is talking about Stephanie's incredible awakening. And so, Stephanie, would you mind sharing with the audience a little bit about your story and your spiritual awakening?
Yeah, definitely. So, when I hear spiritual awakening, like I've been just kind of mulling over in my mind, like how I start this conversation. So to awaken, implies that there is a level of being asleep, right? So to awaken to a greater truth is to awaken to becoming more aware and conscious of who we are, what we're doing, what our purpose is. And so, I think one of the earliest profound memories that I have that sparked this conscious awareness within my being was when I was 17. So I just turned 34 not too long ago. So half my life ago, I returned back. I was in a long-term treatment facility in Arizona. I was in a boarding school. I had been experiencing a lot of emotional issues through trauma and drug abuse and addiction and stuff. And so anyway, I spent a couple of years away from home and treatment. And when I came back to Houston, which is home, not too long thereafter, coming back, I moved out and I started going to college and got my own space. Anyways, just started a new life. And I remember a roommate that I had at the time had this book laying around. And one day he was at work and I remember picking up the book and I started flipping through the pages. And it was this illustrated book by Baba Ram Dass called Remember, Be Here Now. And at that time, it's so interesting because as I was leafing through the pages and reading this profound story of awakening and enlightenment and life and creation, I started crying. I was weeping. And I honestly, consciously, my mind didn't understand what it was that he was saying, but it was like my soul was remembering. And so I deeply connected to this book. So this is probably like the first memory that I have of awakening to greater truth. Now, my behaviors didn't align with that conscious awareness at that time. You know, my story has a lot to do with so the alcohol, the drugs, the promiscuity, the depression, suicide attempts. I mean, all these different things led me to a place of asking myself the deeper questions of why am I here? What am I here to do? What is the purpose of life? And so it wasn't until 2011 when I spent years battling with severe drug addiction, and as my addiction increased with harder substances, then it just everything around my life it just started falling, just increased in severity as far as abuse. So I mean, the people that I was attracting in my life, relationships became more abusive. To the point to where I had lost my sense of who I was or what I was here to do. It was this unconscious cycle of survival, of just trying to make it through a next day, but honestly not even wanting to make it through a next day because I didn't know that there was another way. I didn't know that there was freedom, that there was liberation, that there was love, that there was self-acceptance and appreciation. And it wasn't until, some people, have the luxury of, and I don't know if it's luxury. I mean, because honestly, I look at my life and I look at the choices that I've made in life and the consequences that I suffered or experienced as a result of my choices. And today I can say, Adam, that I don't regret them. Like if I had to do it over again, perhaps I would make the same choices because they all led me to where I am today, to a place where I can say that I have found freedom, that I do love myself. I appreciate who I am. And who I am is not who I thought I was for so many years. It's so much greater than we are led to believe. So it's been... it's been quite the journey. And so through, I can thank the addiction. I can thank the abusers. I can thank all of these events and these people that were placed that at some level today, I think that I at some point before reincarnating into this time and space, that I agreed to it as a soul, to come into this life again, to have these experiences, to overcome these parts of self, to re-encounter this truth of who we really are, and to take these experiences and journey back to source whenever we return back to oneness. So anyway, it's been quite the ride, but absolutely full of gratitude today for all of it.
I love what you said about remembering. I feel like so much of what we hear in today's society, and self-help in particular, is people. I need to find myself. I need to I need to go here and do this and do that because because what I'm lacking exists out there somewhere in the ether. And what you hit on in terms of remembering is really what it's all about. It's really about we come into this world whole. There's nothing we lack, but from the moment we're born, we start to forget, and we forget because we get conditioned by society. There's genetic factors that cause that to happen over time. There's all these different influences, right? And then the whole point of awakening is you have, not the whole point, but when the awakening happened, it's like, wait a minute, And all of a sudden you start to peel back the layers, and it's not even that you're peeling back the layers just kind of start peeling back. And when they start to peel back, that's when you start to realize there's more to it, right?
Yeah, and it keeps unfolding that way. It's quite bizarre. And so when I experience these mystical experiences, or when I have these moments of awakening, because it just, when you say, yes, there's so many layers, like you say. And each time I realized that the signs were always there before. It's like my higher self already knew that I was going to come into this understanding. And so it's just really interesting. It's really bizarre and kind of trippy, but I love it. I mean, I live for that. And it's each time I reawaken to this, higher level of awareness. It just inspires me to want to keep going, because I just know that there's so much more. I'm just barely tapping into the surface of the reality of what is. You know what I mean? It's mind blowing, and so it's interesting too. Like, as we're talking about remembering, that book. When I think about, that was like the first thing that sparked the ignited the flame of, hey, there's a greater truth, like, and you already know, and the title of the book is Remember, Be Here Now. And so it's a process of remembering. And so as I've studied, and worked with meditation and plant medicine, there's this level of awareness that just keeps unfolding. And I just get so excited to explore more.
Yeah, I think that exploration aspect of it, like I don't know if you found yourself feeling this way, but often, I'm sure you do, because I can't imagine you wouldn't. But I personally, I find myself saying all the time, like, I'm so grateful for this journey.
Totally.
And even just looking, even on the non-spiritual side, right? The stuff that we have to do on a daily basis that, maybe we'd rather be doing something else. But it's like, I'm so grateful for every step in this journey, for this path, for whatever it is I'll be walking into, what I've walked through, and where I am in the present moment. And, it's a really powerful part of the awakening, is to you sort of just become grateful because you understand a little bit more.
Definitely. And I mean, the greater my awareness expands, and then as I've studied, I've been studying and practicing meditation with Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I started. So my chiropractor gave me one of his books about 3.5 years ago. And I had been, I shared a little bit about my history with drug addiction. And so I had struggled with legal issues. I found myself just in this hole of, I really didn't think I was going to get out. And I thought I was going to be spending some time in TDC, spending time in prison. And I never thought, I grew up in a really nice home. It was not an environmental thing. My family didn't use drugs or alcohol. I found this method of coping with emotional issues and trauma, sexual trauma that I had at a younger age. Alcohol, drugs were my relief. It was a form of self-soothing, and then the more you do it, the more it becomes a habit, and the body as I've studied with Dr. Joe, it's like, oh well, the body is the unconscious mind, and so to meditate is like we're literally training our body to no longer be the masters, right? So because when we're in a level of addiction, the body is leading the mind. The body craves the drug, and so you have the body creates a feeling. You have the thought, and the thought creates a feeling within your body, and then that creates another thought that creates the same feeling. And next thing you're on this cycle, and And so breaking the cycle of addiction, creates or requires a tremendous amount of consciousness and awareness of remembering, hey, like this is where I'm headed. And to know that at some point, like the body is going to acquiesce to the mind being the master of, saying like, I'm no longer allowing this to dictate, where I'm going to go. So, anyhow, it's just interesting, as I observe, how much it just seems like everything was divinely orchestrated, like everything needed to happen the way that it did in order for me to come to this place of surrendering to doing something different, but at the same time, it's like, is it really anything different? It's like, because it's already, again, it's a level of remembering. It's something that I feel like I knew I was going to get to this place of reconnecting with the divinity that really resides within me. And I think that you mentioned this earlier. It's like we are absolutely programmed. We forget, from the moment that we're born, that we're separate from the divine, and that we're separate. We're individual beings living, these linear lives, when in reality, it's like we're multidimensional beings, like living, these multidimensional. I mean, I don't know how to say it, but it's like I've had numerous visions in meditations, in plant medicine ceremonies of lifetimes, or of who I was in previous lifetimes, and people that I'm connected with in this lifetime. And some of these people remember me. It's this very bizarre, it's like, life really has taken on a total new meaning. But at the same time, it's familiar. I'm not sure how to put it. It's such a coincidental, like appositorial, like it's a paradox. Yet it makes so much sense, like at the soul level.
Yeah, and for those listening in who haven't had a mystical experience such as Stephanie has, where she's experienced sort of like she's seen another life and felt connected to certain people in this life that resonated with that past life memory or vision. I haven't had one either of those, but I know I've shared this on the podcasts with other guests before, but if you go and do a past life regression with a trained hypnotherapist, I had the honor and pleasure of working with a student of Dr. Michael Newton.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was really amazing. And I can, going under hypnosis and doing a past life regression where you actually see a past life and experience the feelings of the past life, and at the end of it, you walk away with what you were supposed to learn in that life and how it applies to the current life that you're living. Anything can be a mystical experience, right? But this, and not to cheapen a mystical experience, but that's one of the, if you haven't had one, having a past life regression is something that will change your life, because once you've seen a past life, because you can hear about past lives all day long, and you can read books, and you can listen to, Stephanie and myself tell you about it, and it's going to sound really cool, and you might even say, hey, you know what, I believe that. But until you experience it, it's almost impossible to understand the gravity of how that changes your life, because when you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning or whatever time to go into work, and you have that meeting to get to, and it's going to be stressful and you're pulling your hair out, you can look back on that past life and go, I'm an eternal soul. I've lived so many lives. Like, I'm going to let this 1 hour, this one meeting of my life make me miserable. Like, that's not even, it's not even a reality anymore, because you understand how much bigger this all really is than that small thing you're worried about coming up in the day or in the coming days, right?
Totally. And I think that that's really what meditation has helped me with so much, is learning to become more present and being in the present moment, because so much of, so much of the time, it's like, I mean, here in America, it's like, a lot of us work 9-to-5 jobs or, and yes, of course that's a program. And sometimes it's like, okay, well, we do live in third dimensional existence. Of course, I love to live in 5D and, be in the void. And I love to go into meditation. But, I mean, I got to have one foot in that dimension and one foot in this dimension. And so often, as I was touching on earlier about like programming, it's like the body leads the mind, right? So, often we just get up and, we're all like, we already have this program routine of things that we're going to do. So we're going to get up, we're going to shower, we're going to brush our teeth, we're going to make coffee, make breakfast, drive to work, go to work, come home. Like there's a list of things that we do, like, and we've done it so often that we don't think about doing it. Our body just goes into it. It's like, we don't think about how we're going to drive a car when we get in the car. Like we've been doing it so much, we automatically know how to do it. So our bodies are like, as the unconscious mind, are already programmed to basically live out so much of our lives, and we're not even aware. So I think the statistics is like 95% of our mind is the subconscious that we're not aware of, and 5% is conscious mind. So to meditate, to become familiar with these unconscious thoughts, behaviors, feelings, beliefs, it's like, okay, well, let me think about what it is that I do want to create. How do I want to live my life? And let me learn to master the present moment a little bit more, because that's where the magic happens, right? Like that's like, if I'm in the present moment, then my conscious awareness is the master. Like that is what is literally creating reality. Like I'm living in that if I can be present. So, I mean, I will say that that is doing that work has helped me tremendously, in my daily life. And I want to pay homage and share my respects and deep reverence to the plants, because I don't know if I would have been open to tuning into that frequency of creating my reality through thought and meditation had I not experienced the sensation and the transformations that I had through the awakenings that I had with plant medicine. So I kind of didn't even finish. I know that I'm jumping around because there's so much that I want to share with our audience today about my story, and limited time. But so in 2011, when I had this situation where I thought, okay, I'm going to be going away for some time, I kind of surrendered into it. The divine granted me another opportunity. I went into this programmed way of doing things, of doing 12-step and 12-step program. I got clean, sober. I worked the 12 steps. All these things were tremendous gifts. I absolutely encourage people that feel, that are in this situation to do that. However, I got to a point to where I still felt like something was missing. I felt this emptiness of, there's got to be more, because on the same token, Adam, it's like, as I shared about, our bodies like go into this subconscious, unconscious way of doing things. I was doing the same thing. I just wasn't drinking or using. And I was like, this is boring. Like, what am I doing with my life? I started asking these questions. And interestingly enough, this is when my chiropractor gave me, You Are the Placebo. I read the book and I thought, my God, okay, this is interesting. A couple months later, Dr. Joe was coming to Austin, Texas. She was like, hey, let's go to this progressive workshop. I was a little resistant, but then I just kind of said, okay, I'll do it. And we went and actually had we're invited to have dinner with him and like 10 other people that weekend. And anyway, the information that he was teaching us, it was familiar, unfamiliar, like, okay, this is like strumming a heartstring. It's literally strumming a chord within my vibrational being. I know that this is the key, and I just haven't stopped. I haven't stopped meditating and working with the plants since, and my life has transformed in ways that I never dreamed possible. I mean, there are so many things that I've created through thought alone, and I was a total skeptic. Like 4 years ago, you would have told me that I could, create some, like, for instance, I now, I have such deep respect for these practices, these spiritual practices and working with plants. And I I wanted so badly to have to be a facilitator or help people that were in my that had been through what I had been through, or not, just seeking greater truth to guide and assist them in their process of awakening through these shamanic practices. Because again, this is something that's very ancient within my soul, within my soul's being that I've been doing for many lifetimes. And so I just knew that, like, I want to do this, but I don't know how, I don't know where. But that's the whole purpose. It's like, okay, well, I don't need to know how. I don't need to know how it's going to happen. I don't need to figure it out or create, try and control or predict how it's going to happen. I just would tune. I would do the formula that Dr. Joe teaches us. I would go into the void. So I would eliminate I'd close myself up from my environment, close my eyes, eliminate external sensory input. So, and enter this place of oneness. And then I would open my heart. And then I would just feel the feelings of what it would be like to experience whatever it is that I want to experience. And so for a while, this is what I was tuning into. And in January of this year, I was having a conversation with a soul sister of mine in our meditation community. And we were talking about other things, just, catching up. It had been a couple months since I'd spoken to her, and I met her at one of Joe's retreats. And in the middle of our conversation, it's so funny. She just paused and she says, "Hold on, I'm getting a download." She says, "Steph, you speak fluent Spanish, right?" I said, yeah, it was my first language. She says, "Oh my God, my partner, my boyfriend, he's created this retreat, and they're German." She says, they're life coaches and they need somebody to be their translator for their retreats in Peru, and someone that has experience in the shamanic community that can help, their people and their processes with the plant medicine. They'll pay for everything. Are you open to going? And I was like, of course this is happening. I didn't have to do anything or go anywhere. I literally just believed in it, tuned into it, just became that energy, and the experience found me. And this is the beauty of understanding how meditation works, how to get to this place to eliminate yourself from the beliefs or the constructs of who society tells you who you are, and just tuning into the oneness, to the frequency of the divinity of our true self, and being open to receiving the gifts that are here for us. So I'm so pumped, and I just want to help people in getting there too, because no one is exempt from being able to receive this and to create this for themselves. It's really beautiful to watch, to partake, and to be a witness in a community, and to help other people in this process of being the living example of, hey, this is where I was 10 years ago, and I have completely evolved into this amazing, beautiful, powerful, infinite. It's who I've always been, but I finally am remembering, and that's the beauty of the plants and the meditation. So I'm just so grateful.
I have two questions for you, and
yeah.
I'm gonna ask you the first one first. I guess that would be the first question anyway.
Cool.
But the second question I want to ask you is about the Dr. Joe meditations. It's a very specific question. So if I can't remember what it is, please remind me. Not like
sure.
So, but the first question I wanted to get to is something that I struggle with, and I think a lot of people who are going through the awakening process struggle with. And you hinted about it a little earlier, which is one of my biggest struggles is, once you kind of start experiencing the mystical side of things, it does change the way you see things. And some people live in the constant mystical state, right? Like connecting with the mystical worlds, if you will, dimensions is just a real-time thing. Others of us, like me, it doesn't happen all the time. It takes specific work and specific practices to get there. And so, but one of the things I think we struggle with, I mean, even after the past life regression, was like getting stuck with my head in the sky, if you think about our chakras, like from the heart, from below the heart chakras are our physical chakras, and above the heart chakra are spiritual chakras. And if you were to think about it from a spiritual perspective, I was totally living in my spiritual chakras. And, I'm a Reiki practitioner, I'm a Reiki master, and my teacher is incredibly mystical. I mean, she astral travels. I mean, she's, when you think of someone who has all of the mystical abilities, she's got them. But every time I go and see her, she's like, Adam, you need to come down.
Yeah.
She's like, you're here on Earth for a reason, okay? She's like, if you were meant to be up in the sky all the time, you wouldn't be here on Earth. So you need to bring it down, you need to ground yourself, and you need to work on that. And, I'm getting better at it, but I'll admit I struggle because I constantly want to stay up in that, in that spiritual plane.
Totally.
So my question to you after all of that is, do you struggle with that? And if so, how did you kind of learn to manage that?
I totally struggle with that still. So, I mean, I think that once you drink from this deeper well, once you start to experience these, wild mystical experiences and having a deeper understanding that everything is energy, and you start waking up from the dream, the illusion that physical matter is, I mean, it is such a small portion of what exists. And if you look at the wave and particle function. So this scientific study that was done, I can't tell you the date that it was done, but basically when these scientists were studying the atom and they realized that the atom would appear whenever they would shift their attention in a different way. And then when they would take their attention off of it, it would disappear, and then would put their attention on it in a different area, it would appear again. Basically, if you look at the fundamental makeup of who we are, if that's the basic, makeup of our being as the atom, then that would mean that we're less than 1% physical matter and 99.99999% energy or possibility. So what are we paying attention to? And so, once I started seeing this and exploring this, it's like, oh my God, like, of course I want to start exploring possibility and connecting with these divine experiences. And I mean, I've learned to create and release DMT through breath work. I get high off of it. And from someone who used to, use heroin and amphetamines or whatever to get high, like now I get high on my own supply through learning how to pull energy from my lower centers into my higher centers. And it feels good. It's exciting. And so you're right. I mean, I can't tell you how often I've had, and dear friends of mine in the community, and they're like, Steph, like, you are so good at the mystical and this is great. Like, maybe ground some. So I'm going to be honest and say that I'm still working on, okay, like I do live in 3D. Like I said earlier, like I love exploring these different dimensions and these altered states of consciousness without even having to put anything in my body. Yet we do live here. Really, it's just a practice of in my meditations, just, tuning into the energy and the frequency of the things that I want to experience. And so it's a practice. It literally is a daily practice. But as far as and I've learned this through being in the shamanic community, is to ground, literally like taking my shoes, my socks, and planting my feet in the earth, and doing a meditation of like seeing the energy that are from, our third, second, first center, and moving that energy into the ground, grounding myself, in a form of meditation. But I'm with you, Adam. I love exploring these other mystical dimensions and realities that exist for us, that are a gift for us. So I'm still in the process of creating that balance, and I'm open to hearing other people's suggestions and practices as well, because I think it definitely is, it's important for us to live in one foot in this realm and in the other dimensions as well, to kind of be a bridge between the two. And I think that's what a shaman does, right? I mean, we are the bridges between the physical and the astral. So, and being gentle with ourselves in the process, because, we are, we're students of the divine. And so it's a process, and we're here to help each other, and just by even sharing the question and us connecting on that is a level of grounding, right?
Yeah, I love what you shared. There's a quote I want to share from Alan Watts. I love
him. Yeah,
I know. I could listen to Alan Watts nonstop, and I would never get tired of it. And
I know.
But you mentioned nothingness and about the atom, right? We know that the atom is 99% space, right? So essentially, the human body and really everything is made up of 99% space, right?
Right.
And this quote I heard from Alan Watts really got me thinking, because, if you think about space, well, what is that space, right? Like, what's in there? And there's this beautiful quote from Alan Watts. It says, "See, if you think of this idea of nothingness as blankness, and you hold on to this idea of blankness, then get kind of grisly about it, you haven't understood it. Nothingness is really like the nothingness of space, which contains the whole universe. All the sun and the stars and the mountains and rivers, and good men and bad men, and the animals and insects, and the whole bit. All are contained in the void. So out of this void comes everything, and you're at, where else could you be?" I mean, it's
full body chills.
Yeah, and it's it's a mind fuck, and it should be, because we're just taught in this, and that's part of the conditioning. It's all part of the conditioning of. And it's not the fault of society, because, society doesn't know until you wake up, you don't know. And so, you look at a desk and you're like, okay, well, this is a solid object, but that solid object is made up of atoms and, that are 99%, space. And from a quantum perspective, sure, we're observing it. And we're seeing the patterns that our human eyes and our brains have learned to see, but we don't see in between, like if we think about atoms, the way particles move, they're constantly moving around, even the most densest particles. And so we don't see that, but it's happening. And so it's all, and I think, the more that we open up to these things and at least be open to them. And then, and I'm going off on a tangent here, but I just think that whole concept of a lot of these concepts, nothingness and just what happens to us on a day-to-day. I mean, even thinking about our lives here on Earth, like there's a reason we came here. And, I sometimes, I don't know if you ever do this, Stephanie, I know I do it, where like I'll be watching TV, or I'll be seeing, someone just living their life wherever I am. And I'm like, it's almost like the Truman Show. Like, it's like, okay, this is that person, this is this person's life. They're here to learn something. And I think, I wonder what their journey is. I wonder what they chose to come back to this life to learn. But it's like watching someone acting out a play.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that quote that you shared about, Alan Watts, and I listen to him all the time too. And there's one YouTube video that I have downloaded onto my phone, and I listened to it for like 3 months straight, because I just wanted to memorize all of these philosophical stories that he would share, and these beautiful examples about life and creation. And he talks about space, and in the beginning he shares, he's like, so there's a story about the astronaut. He goes into space, and he comes back, and he was supposed to go on this search about to find God, and he comes back, and everyone asks, so what did you find? And he's like, so tell me about God. And he's like, she's black. And people just kind of laughed. And he's like, so he goes through this 30-minute dialogue of explaining space, emptiness, the void, sunyata, all these different philosophers' experiences about interpretations about space and nothingness. And there's this one example that I just feel like is so simple, and yet anyone could understand it, that when we read words on a book, like we're reading the words, we're reading the physical matter that is on the page. But what people don't realize is that the words wouldn't exist if there wasn't the page, which is the space that is literally holding that knowledge. It is the support of everything. And yet no one pays attention to it. And that is such a great analogy for life, for the energy, the consciousness that exists around us. We're paying attention to the small portion of matter, but yet the support. So when he says she's black, it's like, and he refers to the support being the feminine energy in philosophy, and so the female energy being the support, being the substance. So like the energy that is supporting the physical matter of what is. And so this whole dialogue that he goes through to come to this understanding of, oh my God. And as much as I've worked with plants and meditation, I mean, yes, this divine feminine, and I'm not sure, I don't have to put a label on it, but there is this divinity, this love, this profound love that is this support to absolutely everything, and that it is space, and it is all around us, and it is within us. And we just have to tune in and pay attention to it. And I think that's why I get so excited about meditation, because the word meditation, to meditate, is to become familiar with. And I think that's why we're here, is to make known the unknown. And it's all around us. So the more we tune in, the more we, sit our bodies down and ask ourselves these questions, the more we're able to see a greater truth of the space that is our very essence makes up the very essence of who we are. And it's divine, profound love. And so it's just so beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for those listening in, I highly recommend, there's an incredible book. I don't know if you've read it or listened to it, Stephanie. I have it on Audible, and I highly recommend using this format. It's for this particular book. It's called Out of Your Mind by Alan Watts. It's Essential Living from the Alan Watts Audio Archives. It's about 13 hours of Alan Watts teaching.
Amazing.
Yeah, and he's a Buddhist philosopher, spiritual entertainer. He is he's no longer with us here on the physical earth plane, but but when you hear his voice and you hear him, if you just read the text, it's great. But to hear his, the way he speaks to these lessons and these teachings, it will just change everything. He's such a dramatic and beautiful speaker. I highly recommend it. So go check it out on Audible. If you have Audible, it may be on iTunes or on Google Play Music, but Out of Your Mind by Alan Watts, Essential Listening from the Alan Watts Audio Archives. It's basically every single one of Alan's teachings. And
wow.
Yeah, awesome. It's like,
I'm gonna check that out. I haven't even heard of it, so thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
Oh, you got it. And it goes and it's all in order. It goes from like the creation of the universe all the way down to like living life in this world that we're in from a spiritual perspective. And it's just soup to nuts. It's the greatest spiritual teaching I have ever come across, so highly recommend it. Okay. So, Stephanie, I have one other question for you, because I know I want to be
let's do it.
Time. But it is regarding Dr. Joe. And so I know you mentioned earlier about when you meditate, and Dr. Joe talks a lot about going, I'm going to butcher, going into the void. and because I read part of his book, Becoming Supernatural.
Yeah.
And I started to practice some of the meditations, and I just didn't have the time to like with everything else going on in my life to really dedicate what needed to be done to do all that stuff. But in listening to Dr. Joe and in listening to other people who, you know, kind of teach us how to manifest through meditation, you know, one of the things that is common is that whole philosophy of feeling, you know, not necessarily like honing in on this is what I want and this is how it's going to happen, but it's more like honing in on what that feeling feels like to have that thing, whatever it is, and then, you know, that vibration matches the universe will match that vibration, and it may not be what you think it is, but the universe will bring that into your life, right?
Yes.
So my question for you is this, and this is where I've struggled, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who has, and maybe you did too, and I'd love to know how you maybe got around this if you did. If you haven't gotten something or you haven't achieved something that you want to, it's hard to know what that truly feels like, right? So like if there's something I want to manifest and I go into meditation and I try to feel what I would feel like if I already had it, it's very difficult to do because I just don't know what that feels like.
Sure. I hear what you're saying. And I mean, I definitely have struggled with that. And there are definitely times where I continue, like where that comes up. But I think what like, as I have been studying and practicing the teachings from Dr. Joe, I understand today that everything is about belief and perception. And again, that the body is the unconscious mind. So we can only accept, believe, and surrender to thoughts that are in alignment with our beliefs. So if I believe, for instance, for many years, I lived in a state of unworthiness, of lack, of depression, of guilt. These feelings were so normal for me that's who I thought I was. So of course, how am I going to attract a wealth, abundance, a new opportunity, a new partner, or whatever. When I'm in this state of lack or depression or unworthiness or confusion, it literally, like scientifically, like the vibration isn't going to match. So we have to become familiar, which is why the meditation is important, to become familiar with the unconscious, the subconscious thoughts and beliefs that are driving our body into believing that we're separate from our creation. So my question to myself or to you or to anybody else is, okay, so what are you thinking? How are you feeling when you're trying to create this? Sure, you may, we don't have to, because there are many things that I haven't experienced in this realm. But it's like, okay, what is the belief that I have to have had experienced it in order for me to know what it feels like? What I'm trying to shed some light on is there are underlying subconscious beliefs, thoughts, emotions that are keeping you separate from tuning into that energy. So then the question is, well, let's just do a general example of elevated emotions. And this is what Joe teaches us. Cause of course, like I've not had $1 million in this lifetime, but let me just play with the idea. Okay. If today somebody knocked on my door, like my neighbor knocked on my door earlier and was like, hey, like, here's a check for $1 million. Like, how would I feel? Like, I would feel excited. I would feel joyful. I would feel in love with life. I would, I can tune into the energy of like when something surprises me that's really great. Surely you've had an experience of something that was really amazing and wonderful that caught you off guard. So I build off of that. And I think that it's just beginning with those feelings. And so the more we practice those feelings, the more those become the new normal. So we're not even aware that we're thinking and feeling in these ways that are limited or of lack or depression or that are keeping us separate from tuning into the frequency of the feelings of our future. And it's all there. It just requires practice, and it requires a tremendous amount of conscious awareness to think about what it is that you're thinking about. And so that's the beauty and the work of the meditation. I know that it does require time. And I just wake up really, really early in order to make the time so that I can change that energy, so that I can start to unwire the subconscious beliefs that are keeping me separate from the things that I'm wanting to create. So really, it's just, how do you want to feel? What are the elevated emotions that feel good? And just keep practicing those feelings of being in love with life and being excited and being joyful, and gratitude is the ultimate state of receiving. When we feel gratitude, like, when I'm grateful for something, usually it's because something has already happened, right? Somebody has given me something. I've received an opportunity, a compliment, a gift, or am just so full of this joyous expression because life has given me something. So if I can practice feeling gratitude, and it doesn't matter what it is that I'm thinking about that puts me into that state of being or feeling, but the more that we can just sit and think about whatever it is that we're grateful for, and that can become the new normal, then we are opening ourselves up as energetic beings for the universe to bring us what we want, because we're already in a state of receiving when we're grateful. So that is that would be my number one suggestion, is to just practice gratitude and just watch how the universe is going to, gift you things.
That resonates super well, and definitely, it's definitely good to. And I think, it's easy to do that when we're feeling good, right? Because we all have our good days, and
right.
There are those days where the old thoughts start to creep in.
Totally.
And, we get in our ruts and we get into our frustrations, and it's like, wait.
Totally.
And
yeah.
Well, Stephanie, thank you. I want to thank you, first of all, for joining the podcast today. You're an amazingly beautiful soul, and
thank you.
What you share is so valuable, and I hope to have you back on the podcast again and to talk about other things. And I know we've got some projects next year we'll be working on together in coordination with SpiritWoke. So looking forward to sharing that with the larger community. I do want to say that I've had the pleasure of seeing some of the jewelry designs that Stephanie has created. They're absolutely beautiful, and I'm not just saying that because she's on the show. They're spiritually inspired, and you need to go check them out. It's go check out her website. It's www, and I feel so old saying www. So forget I just said www. Strike that from the record, Your Honor. Check out lovecraftjewelrydesigns.com. So that's lovecraftjewelrydesigns.com. And if you're driving and you can't write that down, if you go to spiritwoke.com and you find Stephanie's podcast page, I will have a link on the page for you to get there. But go check out her jewelry and go buy some, because I'm telling you, it is beautiful. It'll make a great gift. It'll be awesome for you to wear if that's your thing. But there's someone that that would love some of the artwork that Stephanie creates. And Stephanie, is there anything else?
Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. And is there anything else you want to share about what you're up to, or anywhere you want people to go on the web, or like what?
Yeah, I'm just, working on creating some new collections right now with my jewelry. I'm preparing again to head off to Peru next month to assist my friends and their clients in their spiritual process, medicine ceremonies and retreat. So I'm just, I just keep surrendering and unfolding into, where the divine wants to lead me. And it's just my honor and my duty to serve, this divine frequency of love. And I'm just honored to share my experiences with everyone. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. And I look forward to, sharing meditation and other things, next year, with the community. So I'm just honored. Thank you so much, Adam.
Well, we are honored. I am honored to have you part of this community, your family to me.
Thank you.
And, also any way that we as a podcast can support anything that you're doing in the future. You have the 120% of our force here. So I love you.
Love you too, brother. Thank you so much.
Hey, you know what? That's what family does. And we
Absolutely.
love you too. You guys listening in, I love you too. We love you too.
Yes,
hey,
so much love to you guys.
Much love. Join our Facebook page, by the way. You can find us. If you go to Facebook, it's official SpiritWoke. Or if you just type in SpiritWoke into the search bar, you'll find our page. We post all the time. We have Facebook live chats. We're constantly doing a lot of fun stuff on the page. So join us there. Go to our website, spiritwoke.com, and give us, sign up for our newsletter. And I promise I won't spam you with lots of stuff you're not interested in. We send out not news, but we send out episodes. So every time a new episode comes out, check us out. We also send any digital workshops that are coming up. We will let you know about that. We'll keep you updated on the SpiritWoke Summit coming up. We've got so many good things. So sign up on our website. And I promise again, we won't spam you. And so that being said, again, Stephanie, thank you so much. So grateful. And until next time, take care of yourselves and namaste.
Namaste.
Thanks for listening to the SpiritWoke Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to check out our website, spiritwoke.com, and connect with the SpiritWoke community on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search SpiritWoke. Join us next time for another edition of the SpiritWoke Podcast. Namaste.